Are you a big fan of Baldur's Gate? Or do you like D&D or fantasy-like stories with a sense of adventure, partying, and RPG-like nature? Well, then look no further than this series, Fantasy High. It is a series I recently discovered that is, I'm just going to be completely blunt, straight-up D&D fiend. Don't believe me? Let me show you proof here. This is Chapter 4, and this happens in multiple chapters, by the way, but every time there's like a major character introduction, they get introduced, you get to see what race they are, and what class they are. And for those nerds out there, or those that are not nerds or nerdy like I am, the reason why this says half devil instead of tiefling is because of copyright reasons. FYI, for those that are unaware, the individuals that are working on this series, Fantasy High, obviously doesn't have the license to use like D&D property. It's why like beholders and stuff are usually licensed or, copyrighted. It's why certain themes or characters can't be said, like for instance tiefling in other stories, so they're either called devilkin or half devils, stuff like that. So regardless of this kind of being inaccurate, the reason why it is inaccurate is because it has to be for copyright reasons. But anyways, we have tieflings within the story, we have straight up like orc barbarians, we have, goblin rogues. It's just, it's really fun. And as a big fan of Baldur's Gate, I'm just going to be completely blunt with you, I have like a lot of hours. Like I've played Baldur's Gate 3 way too much, okay? I am a massive fan. I'm still playing it, even though it has been out for like 2 years now? Yeah, it's been out for 2 years. I'm still playing it actively. In fact, there was a new patch that literally came out like less than a week ago that I'm going to be diving into Baldur's Gate 3 once again with an entirely new playthrough, but I'm going to be probably doing a Drow Dark Urge once again. But anyways, I'm getting a little bit gushing to a game, for instance, Baldur's Gate. I'm here to talk about Fantasy High. So, I love fantasy. I'm a big fan of the nerdy stuff, the fantasy, the lore of the world, like when it comes to elves, dwarves, goblins, orcs, all sorts of stuff like that. It's a big reason why I'm like a Lord of the Rings fan. It was kind of like my introduction, honestly, into high fantasy. Like, it started with Diablo when I was a kid, when I was like only 5 or 6. I know I shouldn't have probably been playing Diablo, but I did. But it started with Diablo, and then eventually I watched The Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, and it kind of gained my interest into the whole fantasy genre, so to speak. And eventually, that dived into gaming and all sorts of stuff, and that's where I'm at today. So Fantasy High has all those little ticks that I really love in a D&D like setting or fantasy setting, because obviously this isn't a reincarnated story, this isn't transported to another world, this is strictly just a fantasy story with a bunch of different races, tieflings, goblins, half-orcs, half-elves, elves, wood elves, drow, you get the point. It has everything, it has all the classes, and there's even hints that like Artificer is being hinted at with the orc as well that was showcased in this chapter, when we got his class introduction. There's hints that he might be an artificer. So, it's pretty cool stuff. There's a lot of love and passion that I feel put into these pages that clearly, the writer of this series is a massive fan of tabletop games. They're a massive fan probably of card games. They're a massive fan of Baldur's Gate. I could feel that passion. You could feel that the writer and artist behind this are mega fantasy fans. They're nerds just like myself. But what is the story about? Obviously, I've been gushing about the setting and all that, but what is Fantasy High actually about? Well, to give some brief clarification, it's this college campus slash high school that, more or less has people decide what group they're going to be in for questing or adventuring. Basically, the school is literally designed for you could find a party to be able to become adventurers. And it's exactly like what you would expect from like a society that has different classes and races and stuff. Of course, there would be schools and stuff like adventure schools, and that's pretty much what this is. And so our main cast of characters, or our main character Riz, this is the goblin character, by the way, our MC, which, by the way, I love. I love how we have a goblin as a main character, because it's typically always like an elf, or it might be an orc, might be a tiefling. But to have an actual, like, goblin character as the MC, big fan of that. I feel like goblins don't get a lot of love like they should. I expected more of a kobold than, let's say, a goblin as an MC, but here we are. Anyways, the story is about our characters trying to find their own groups to hang out with and to be able to go into adventures, slay monsters, you get the point. However, there is a subplot that is introduced in the first chapter where basically there's a bunch of missing cases, a bunch of people, and even friends of our main male character Riz is disappearing on campus, disappearing in the town. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously, it's a deeper plot, and that's more or less the the overarching story behind the scenes while the characters are getting introduced and we're finding out more about how they would interact with each other and what roles they would genuinely play within a party. But, if I had to take an educated guess, it might be something to do with summoning, rituals, fiends, I have no idea. Once again, the story has established that it is very versed within the lore of D&D and Baldur's Gate and all sorts of stuff like that, so it could go any route. It could go down the path of, let's say, stuff like Shar, it could go the path of, let's say, just some crazy undead god, it could be just some fairies doing trickery within the woods, who really knows? I like that, and the series also has some very darkish themes to it as well. It's definitely not completely lighthearted. I mean, just like any adventure, any, like, let's say, D&D group session or campaign, you're going to have, like, some very happy-go-lucky, wacky, funny stuff, but then suddenly it's going to turn into some pretty dark stuff, or stuff can take a twist of just being very demented, so to speak, and we get to see that literally within Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, where basically a bunch of our characters that we get to know straight up just dies, like, just dies in a fight, and it's just like, oh okay, this series definitely has a lot more violence and blood and stuff than I expected, but, you know, who would have figured? You know, it's a fantasy-like story that's based on D&D. But still, definitely took me by surprise, and I was pretty shocked to see the loss of characters. However, this is a world that has, like, resurrection, true resurrection. It really just depends on your spell level and all that type of stuff if you're able to resurrect people. But yeah, I mean, I like this. I've liked what I've read so far. I really recommend this to those that like fantasy. I mean, once again, if you love Baldur's Gate, you love D&D, you love fantasy, this is something for you, man. It's very short right now. It's only 7 chapters. Apparently it was based off this series called Dimension 20. Like, this is what this was based off of. And, it's gonna have, like, 60 chapters and it's gonna be done. So that's pretty nice to know that there's already an end-game goal and they kind of know how they want to conclude it. I think any good story needs to be written in a way where they know how it'll end and be able to fill in stuff if it goes a little bit more unexpected path. But I think genuinely an author should know how they want to end their story. So yeah, that's good news overall. If you are interested in reading this, link is in the description. You don't have to pay anything. It's completely free. It'll just take you to this, what you see on screen here. You're able to read it. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for, watching. I appreciate all of you. I love you. Be safe. Stay healthy. Chibi out.